The streets of Redding, California, were lined with neatly trimmed hedges. Birds chirped as early morning runners passed by, and neighbors sipped coffee on their porches. It was a typical November morning calm, ordinary and uneventful. Sherri Papini, a 34-year-old mother of 2 young children, waved goodbye to her family. Her husband, Keith, watched her jog down the familiar suburban streets, thinking it would be just another routine run. He had no reason to suspect anything could go wrong. By the time Sherri disappeared, the community would be holding its breath. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers would rally in hope and fear, desperate to know whether she would return. The calm of the morning masked the storm that was about to grip the town and, eventually, the nation. Sherri was known as a loving mother and active community member. Her children, aged 2 and 4, depended on her for their daily lives. The thought that she might not return immediately sent ripples of worry through the people who knew her. Little did anyone know, this disappearance would become one of the most controversial and shocking cases of the decade, blending fear, hope, and deception in ways nobody could have anticipated. Before we dive in, if you love gripping true crime stories and want to uncover the hidden details behind cases like this, hit subscribe and give this video a like. It helps more people discover these stories. The Disappearance and Search Daily Timeline. On the 2nd of November 2016, Sherri left her house in the early morning. Her neighbors would later describe seeing her jog past at 7:15 a.m. wearing her usual workout gear. By mid-morning, she hadn't returned. Concern grew when phone calls went unanswered. Keith contacted local authorities. Police quickly organized a search of nearby trails and streets. Volunteers joined from the neighborhood, many of them walking miles each day, calling out her name. Some slept in their cars overnight, returning at dawn to continue searching. By day 3, the search had intensified. Local news stations ran live updates, sharing photos and descriptions nationwide.
In Northern California are searching for a woman reported missing last Wednesday. Keith Papini, the husband of Sherri Papini, believes she was abducted, and he's pleading for her safe return.
Social media amplified the efforts. Facebook groups, Twitter posts, and GoFundMe pages rallied both emotional and financial support. Strangers offered tips, moral support, and donations to help fund search efforts. By day 5, exhaustion set in. Volunteers complained of sore legs, blistered feet, and sleepless nights. Fear mingled with hope as every lead came and went. Students in nearby schools were encouraged to watch the streets for any sighting, while parents checked in constantly with authorities. Day 7 brought the first nationwide attention. News anchors recounted Sherri's story, emphasizing the loving mother and community member who had vanished. Emails, social media messages, and tips flooded in. Every day without her was a day of increasing tension and uncertainty. By day 10, the FBI joined the investigation. Helicopters scanned remote trails, and K-9 units searched dense woodland areas. Community members lit candlelight vigils in parks. Every unanswered question heightened the emotional stakes. Volunteers shared whispered fears about foul play, some sleeping fitfully, haunted by images of Sherri alone and scared. Day 12 to 16 brought repeated reports of sightings. None were confirmed, but every tip sparked hope. Social media posts escalated, with hashtags trending nationwide. Families who didn't know Sherri personally still felt invested, their empathy driving them to post updates and volunteer information. The tension of each day, hope, despair, fatigue, created a psychological roller coaster. Families of missing persons could relate. Volunteers formed tight-knit bonds, united by concern and shared exhaustion. By day 20, weeks of searching had yet to produce a clue. Authorities faced immense pressure from the public, media, and federal agencies. The stress was immense, both for investigators and the families waiting for answers. Breakthrough found on Thanksgiving morning. On the 24th of November 2016, a passing motorist spotted a woman along Interstate 5 near Sacramento. She was disoriented, bruised, and bandaged, and her appearance immediately drew concern. Paramedics rushed to her side, carefully assessing her injuries before transporting her to the hospital. The chaotic morning gave way to a surreal sense of relief. The town held its breath as the ambulance sped through streets filled with flashing lights and anxious onlookers. Sherri Papini had survived 22 days that no one knew the full story of. Her physical condition was alarming: lacerations on her hands and arms, burns that suggested contact with chemicals, and deep bruises that didn't align with a simple fall. Medical staff worked quickly to stabilize her, documenting every injury for law enforcement. When Keith Papini arrived at the hospital, he was overwhelmed by emotion. The reunion with his wife was a mixture of joy, relief, and lingering fear. Their children, ages 2 and 4, were cautiously introduced to their mother. Hospital staff facilitated a careful, controlled reunion so the children could see her without becoming frightened by her injuries. The community erupted in relief and celebration, but tension remained. News crews broadcasted live from the hospital, framing the story as a miraculous recovery. Social media users posted messages of support and disbelief. Candlelight vigils, held in local parks and near Sherri's home, continued for several days, symbolizing both hope and communal solidarity. Even amidst relief, fear lingered. Authorities reinforced patrols and monitored local neighborhoods, aware that the abduction, if real, could involve dangerous perpetrators still at large. Families in the community could not shake the anxiety, and many volunteers who had searched for weeks reported that the emotional strain had left them exhausted. Sherri's condition prompted discussions nationwide about abduction recovery. Interviews highlighted not only her resilience, but also the extreme stress her absence had caused her loved ones. Doctors emphasized both her physical and psychological recovery, noting that trauma of this magnitude could last long after immediate medical care. Cracks in the story. Investigation deepens. As the initial relief faded, investigators began to notice inconsistencies in Sherri's account. Phone records showed gaps that did not align with her story of captivity. Security camera footage failed to place her in the locations she described, and some injuries seemed inconsistent with the alleged assault. FBI agents meticulously retraced her steps, examining local gas stations, highways, and known routes in the area. Witness interviews produced conflicting statements, and minor details raised suspicion. Some reporters and criminologists began to question the official narrative, citing psychological patterns that did not match typical abduction cases. The investigation revealed that certain physical injuries could have been self-inflicted or staged. Medical experts examined the burns, concluding that they were unlikely to be the result of captivity as described. Law enforcement found small inconsistencies in timelines, including travel distances and reported sightings that did not match Sherri's account. Those who were doing the investigation were going through a great amount of emotional hardship. On the one hand, they wanted to demonstrate their support for Sherri because they were victims themselves. The other side of the coin is that they were in the presence of evidence that suggested they had been dishonest. As a consequence of the exceptional load that was placed on law enforcement, officers were required to find a way to strike a balance between the need for empathy and the demand for objective analysis. Certain online communities have mushroomed into thriving hubs of speculation in recent years. The examination of photographs, the discussion of intentions, and the examination of perceived conflicts all took place within the context of social media threads. Each and every public remark was examined by journalists, which added to an environment that was both suspicious and exciting regarding the situation. Every new piece of information contributed to the pervasive sense of unpredictability, which maintained the public's curiosity with regard to the situation. Researchers working in the domains of psychology and criminal behavior were the ones who initially offered their comments. They made the observation that episodes of staged kidnapping typically involve a number of intricate motivations, such as the need for attention, the stress of interpersonal relationships, and psychological coping mechanisms. They reached this discovery because they observed incidents of kidnapping that were manufactured. Volunteers and neighbors started to process the emotional whiplash they had experienced over this time period. This included the fear and excitement that had been brought on by weeks of seeking, which were now mingled with uncertainty. The hoax reveal: legal consequences. The turning point came in April 2022, 6 years after the disappearance. Federal authorities publicly disclosed that Sherri Papini had fabricated her abduction. Every claim the injuries, the alleged captors, and the timeline had been deliberately staged. The announcement shocked the nation. Volunteers, law enforcement officials, and online followers expressed disbelief and frustration. A community that had invested time, energy, and emotional resources felt deeply betrayed. Public sentiment shifted from relief to anger and bewilderment. Court proceedings followed. Sherri pleaded guilty to lying to federal agents and committing mail fraud. Her sentence was 18 months in federal prison, supervised release afterward, and in order to repay the costs associated with the investigation, including extensive search and security expenses. Prosecutors emphasized the scope of the deception. They noted the massive misuse of public resources, the emotional toll on volunteers, and the financial burden placed on both authorities and the community. Media coverage highlighted these impacts, further amplifying the sense of betrayal. The courtroom atmosphere was tense. Journalists captured Sherri's muted expressions, while community members who attended the hearings expressed frustration. Legal experts commented on the rarity of such elaborate deception cases, emphasizing that federal consequences were both punitive and deterrent. The hoax reveal illustrated a critical point. When a high-profile disappearance is fabricated, the emotional, social, and financial consequences extend far beyond the individual. Families, volunteers, and even national audiences are affected, raising questions about trust and accountability. If this story is shocking you, hit like it helps more people hear about it. Psychological insights, social aftermath. Why do people stage such elaborate hoaxes? Experts suggest multiple motives: a desire for attention, coping with personal stress, identity struggles, or seeking sympathy and support. Sherri's case likely involved a combination of these factors, making her actions both complex and psychologically intriguing. The social impact was profound. Volunteers reported exhaustion and disappointment, having spent weeks searching for someone who was not missing. Family members expressed profound betrayal, struggling with the emotional toll of deception. Schools, local organizations, and community centers reconsidered how they manage missing persons cases and how to balance compassion with critical analysis. The racial and social implications were also notable. Sherri's claims initially invoked fears that were amplified by stereotypes and media narratives. This case highlighted how fabricated stories can influence public perception and stoke tension, even unintentionally. Psychologists emphasized that hoax cases erode community trust. When people invest emotionally in a missing persons case, a lie of this magnitude damages their willingness to participate in future emergencies. Experts also noted that the stress, disappointment, and confusion experienced by volunteers can lead to long-term emotional fatigue. Sherri's story became a cautionary tale, frequently cited in law enforcement training and psychology courses. Analysts noted how staged abductions disrupt investigative priorities, diverting resources from real victims. Social media experts also observed the role of online platforms in amplifying attention, providing both support and unintended encouragement for deceptive behaviors. The emotional impact on Sherri's children and family cannot be overstated. Her absence, followed by the hoax revelation, created trust challenges, emotional instability, and questions that would persist for years. Neighbors and friends, too, grappled with feelings of anger and confusion, reflecting the deep social scars left by the case. Legacy. The Sherri Papini case remains a powerful lesson in vigilance, empathy, and critical thinking. Law enforcement agencies now use it in training to help officers identify potential hoaxes while still prioritizing the safety of genuine victims. Communities reflect on the balance between compassion and skepticism. Volunteers who once walked miles searching for Sherri now consider the emotional investment required for missing persons cases. The psychological lessons extend far beyond this single town, serving as a reminder of human behavior, social dynamics, and the consequences of deception. For Sherri's family, the consequences were long-lasting. Relationships with extended family, friends, and the public were strained. Trust, once shattered, proved difficult to rebuild. Social networks fractured as those involved tried to reconcile the relief of her return with the betrayal of the hoax. The case also serves as a reminder of the power of narrative. A convincing story can mobilize a community, attract national attention, and even manipulate social systems. Yet, the long-term repercussions reveal that truth and accountability ultimately prevail. In the end, the most striking part of this story is the contrast between hope and deception. Communities were united by fear and empathy, only to be blindsided by lies. Volunteers who endured emotional and physical exhaustion, families who feared the worst, and authorities who mobilized nationwide all faced consequences they could not have predicted. The story leaves viewers with a sobering reflection. Appearances can be deceiving, and even the most emotionally gripping cases may conceal hidden motives. The real mystery in the Sherri Papini case was not only where she went, but why she chose to deceive everyone around her. Ultimately, it serves as a cautionary tale about human nature, trust, and the delicate balance between compassion and critical thinking. It's a story that will be studied, debated, and remembered, not only for the shock of her disappearance, but for the lessons learned when the truth finally came to light. As we reflect on the Sherri Papini case, one thing is clear: appearances can be deceiving, and even the most gripping stories may hide truths we never expect. Communities can come together in hope, but deception leaves scars that last far longer than the fear. This story is a reminder of the delicate balance between empathy and critical thinking and the real consequences when that balance is broken. Volunteers, family, and neighbors all paid an emotional price, teaching us that trust is precious and must be handled carefully. For law enforcement, psychologists, and communities, the lessons endure. From missing person protocols to understanding human behavior, the impact of this case continues to shape how we respond to future emergencies. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share this video so others can learn the lessons hidden behind the headlines. Sometimes the real mystery isn't where someone went, but why they chose to deceive the world. And that's a truth we can never forget.